Bad news coming in for Britain, bad news particularly for Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Britain's economy has now shrunk 2 quarters in a row, which means it is officially in recession. It had shrunk July to September last year, then again it is revealed now to have shrunk in the last quarter of 2023. This now puts Britain in recession, and that is a worrying sign for Britain. This has been anticipated for some time. In fact, Britain's economy has been at a low really for the last 2 years. The Bank of England has sought to intervene, the government has sought to intervene to lift it up without very significant success at all so far. This particularly puts Rishi Sunak in a spot as former Chancellor of the Exchequer. This was the one thing he was expected to deliver on to try and lift up the economy. Is not quite happening. This news comes in the face of some limited success for Sunak in the reduced rise in inflation, currently around 4%, down from what it was a year back, in line with his promises, but still relatively high in relation to other countries, and still the prices of several essential goods does remain high. That success now is more than negated by news of Britain falling into a recession. This now does put the pressure on Britain to take steps to try and reverse this situation. The budget is due on March the 6th, and tax cuts are expected to try and lift the economy and try and get the economy moving, try and get investment and business moving, because there's a standstill particularly in manufacturing, once the great strength of Britain. The news now of recession comes on a particularly bad day for Rishi Sunak, as 2 critical by-elections are being held. Voting is underway as this news broke, and it is very important now for the Conservatives to win those 2 by-elections. That's not looking easy at all. Also, this is the year when Britain goes to the polls. The general election is expected later this year. It is due by January of next year, but it is expected later this year, and news of this recession is not good news for those elections. Rishi Sunak really has been in a spot on many fronts. The lowdown in the recession comes together with his personal disclosure of tax earnings of £2 million or so in a year, a good amount of money earned as other than the average earning across Britain, which has not been rising at all in the face of the recession that we have seen. This really does give ammunition to a lot of the opposition charges that Rishi Sunak is just very elite, he's just very well off, he's not in touch with the needs of common people, and the news of the recession and his personal income will do nothing to lessen the sharpness of that charge that is being aimed at Rishi Sunak. So clearly pressure for Rishi Sunak. He has to deliver very quickly in order to convince people to vote for the Conservatives, to vote for him. The Conservative Party is low, it's way behind in the opinion polls. Its ratings are at a record low in relation to Labour. Labour is running into its own difficulties of all kinds, but that is something Labour is trying to overcome, and Rishi Sunak certainly will have to do something to try and catch up with Labour and to beat it if he hopes to survive at all.
Britain's economy fell into a recession in the second half of last year. Official data released Thursday showed gross domestic product contracted by a worse than expected 0.3% in the 3 months to December. That follows another decline over the period between July and September of 0.1%. Britain's Office for National Statistics said the Q4 fall in GDP was the biggest since the first quarter of 2021 in the depths of the health crisis. It further indicated manufacturing, construction and wholesale sectors were the largest contributors to the decrease. The country's economy has stagnated for nearly 2 years, though the Bank of England expects it to pick up slightly in 2024. Thursday's data was not good news for Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who has promised to boost growth ahead of an election expected this year. Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt said there were signs the British economy is turning a corner. He also argued authorities must stick to the plan of cutting taxes on work and business to build a stronger economy. Media reports said Hunt aims to cut billions of pounds from public spending plans. He wants this to fund pre-election tax cuts in his March 6th budget.
We always expected growth to be weaker while we prioritised tackling inflation. That means higher interest rates. And that's the right thing to do, because you can't have long-term healthy growth with high inflation. But also for families, when there's a cost of living crisis, when the cost of their weekly shop is going up, their energy bills are much higher, it's the right thing to do. The underlying picture here is an economy that is more resilient than most people predicted. Inflation is coming down, real wages have been going up now for 6 months. And if we stick to our guns, independent forecasters say that by the early summer we could start to see interest rates falling, and that will be a very important relief for families with mortgages.